Oh, look at that. You can see a green light in the corner from my keyboard. Let me see if I can just move that a little back. So I figured out why I was unable to go back to school, of all things. I swear, my school is riddled with problems. So I was not able to even log in to register for a class, a course. And obviously I sent them an email asking, hey, I'm not able to log in. What might be the issue? Obviously, well, not obviously. I did that on Saturday, which obviously they're not open Saturdays. They're not open on the weekends. So I was hoping Monday I would get a reply in time. Nope. I called the guest service, like the student guest service area. Well, I was put in queue, and then the automated service said the call will be disconnected. Please try our AI online service. Our AI online helper. Which, of course, I tried, and that did squat. So I was thinking, alright, I'm not able to figure this myself. Their system is super broken. I emailed them, no reply. I got a phone call. I tried giving a phone call. The line just straight up got disconnected. So you know what? I'm going to drive up to the campus itself. I'm going to drive to the school itself and figure out what's going on with these clowns, what kind of games these people are playing. So I went in and I saw a horde of students also at the help center. You know, the help area where people need assistance doing whatever. And I'm just thinking, this should not be the case. If the school had a simple and functioning system, there should not be this many students who need assistance. Like, if the system was fine, if it worked functionally, there should be little to no students having issues that need an entire room full of people to help them. So this is not normal. Had everything functioned properly, the scene I saw today should not have even come close to being the reality, which is a crap ton of students needing help with whatever. It just should not be the case. Why must this world be more complicated than it needs to be? Why can't things just be simple and straightforward? But anyways, so the reason I wasn't able to actually log in and book a course is because over the past couple of years since I graduated, my student account had been blocked. More so like deactivated, you know, due to the years of inactivity, which I guess kind of makes sense, but at the same time is also kind of bullshit. So my student account is just not functional due to the handful of years of inactivity. Which I guess makes sense because, you know, I graduated a couple years ago. They don't know if I'm ever going to come back. It's just wasting, like, storage space on their hard drives or whatever. So after a certain amount of time, if the student doesn't come back and use their student accounts, then it's no longer needed. That makes sense if you think of, like, well, the doctor probably isn't going to come back and learn something else. But that's not going to be the case for every student, so that's why it's also bullshit. Someone like me, who, as much as I dislike it, crawled back to their goddamn campus. Well, now my student account is unusable. And given how many people had issues to deal with today, I had to line up in so many different lines just to be bounced back and forth. Like, oh, your issue, if you go line up over there. Oh, this issue, line up, go over there. I stood in line in like 4 different lineups. Eventually, I was guided to like a help service next to the in-school Starbucks. And I was finally able to get something going. I told them, yada yada yada, I was here a couple years ago. My account is no longer active. I'm trying to activate it again so that I can book something else, so I can take something else. And, well, they need to frickin' give me a case number. Like, they're gonna open a case. So, I'm not able to, you know, apply for any courses until my student account is unblocked. Which, who knows how long that will take. I mean, it's not the biggest loss in the world, I suppose. I'm not in any hurry to go back to studying and midterms and homework. You know, I'm not scratching at the necks to get back to that. Good luck with your shiny hunt. Thank you. So, it looks like I missed this semester at least, which, oh no. Anyways, whatever. You're doing good? That's good to hear. So it seems like at the moment, no school for me. Oh no. Whatever shall I do? Well, actually, that might not be the best thing ever, because if it's not school, then it's job searching. And we all know how hard job searching is. So yeah, I went back to my school campus today and I finally solved that issue, I guess. It does mean that I missed the class that's starting tomorrow. But, aw, shoo. Aw, darn. Oh well. I have a lot of things to talk about today. First, I want to mention that news came out for Pokemon Go that the Dunsparce is coming. So you can finally evolve your Dunsparces in Pokemon Go. I have like 3 shiny Dunsparces I'm going to evolve. Maybe I can get that elusive 3 segment. But sadly, it's not like mainline Pokemon games where you can save, evolve, and if it's not what you want, just reset so that you never evolved it. Nope, Pokemon Go, the evolutions are permanent. So, I lose my Dunsparces. But instead gain a horde of 2-segmented Dunsparces. Majority of the time, I like to keep my shinies as they are. Unless it's special cases, you know? So if I get something the way it is, I typically don't want to evolve it. Unless I'm hunting it for the sole purpose of evolving it. Okay, so we have a lot to talk about today. We have 4 different shows to break down today. Yes, 4. I'm finally returning to breaking down episodes of The Boys, Arcane. We have the first episode of Eyes of Wakanda, as well as last night was the Season 3 premiere of The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. So we have each one of these to go over. I am going to start with Daryl Dixon, and then we're going to go with the usual order. I can't remember if Daryl Dixon Season 3 is going to have 6 episodes again or 8. I think it's still stuck with 6, which is still a huge issue. Contrary to what I'm about to say, this episode I thought was pretty good. Quite excellent. Except for maybe like the final part of the episode. The final part kind of dragged on a little bit. And also really showed the plot armor. However, the rest of the story was relatively good. Now, it still suffers from the same issues that not only this spin-off, but all spin-offs have had. The same stinking issues across the board, and they still haven't fixed it. Oh, so let's begin. So if you remember, end of Season 2, Daryl and Carol made it past the tunnel. The tunnel connecting, I think it was France and England. That was absolutely filled with guano, or bat shit, which apparently makes you hallucinate. There was even a line in the episode where Carol was just like, I guess that's why it's called bat shit crazy. It's like, you know what? Yeah, I guess that does make sense. So Daryl and Carol make it across. Throughout the episode, Carol is holding this can of sausages. This can of hot dogs. And they're wondering, do you think it's still good? It's been like 12 plus years into the apocalypse. I highly doubt it. Have you seen the video by Nile Red? That 60-year-old can of drinkable water? How it's completely brown? I mean, it's not 60 years into the apocalypse, but it's also not just a can of water. There's actual sausages in there. The preservatives can only do its job for so long. So I highly doubt, even when they open that can of sausages, it's still going to be good. But I'm betting that can of sausages is probably going to be like an end-of-season prize. We might see at the end of Season 3, hell, maybe at the end of Season 4, Carol finally opens that can of sausages, and wow, it's still edible. You can still eat it. Look, it's as if it was packaged and furnished yesterday. That's going to be really unrealistic, but I'm betting that's what's going to happen. So yeah, somehow, somewhere along the way, Carol got her hands on a can of sausages. And throughout the episode, they were considering several times to open it, but they did not. So, like I said, I'm betting that's going to be an end-of-season prize. Alright, so Daryl and Carol made it to the other end of the tunnel, which also, if you remember, at the end of Season 2, My Name and Fiona, they actually said that the UK, they were able to actually survive the outbreak. They were actually able to survive. At the time when Season 2 ended, that was a huge revelation. We got little bits of lore that the UK government, they actually closed off everything to the island, shut off everything, and then they actually were able to contain everything. So for quite a while, it seems, the United Kingdom actually was able to survive the wildfire virus. However, that's clearly not the case anymore, because we see Daryl and Carol make it to London, and the place is absolutely deserted. They're walking down the streets, it has all bunch of vegetation growing. Daryl and Carol, they're wondering like, hey, where is everyone? There's no walkers either. As they keep going, they walk past a walker that's trapped in a telephone booth. I wonder how that even happened. But then slowly the walkers just kept on emerging, coming out of the bus, coming out of the bushes, and then there was an enormous horde surrounding them. So they turn, they go into this building, which, once again, the plot armor, any normal person and Daryl would have been surrounded and torn apart. But no, Daryl was able to survive just barely. He did have to drop his crossbow, though, just because he ran out of arrows, and then he had to drop it to use his... I think is it a Morning Star or a mace? No, not a mace. It is a Morning Star. But yeah, any other character, and they would have been dead. Considering, wow, that horde of walkers showed up fast, collected fast. But Carol and Daryl, they were able to make it into the building, close off the gate behind them, and then they went exploring. They went into this one apartment that was very fancy looking, although covered in cobwebs and spiderwebs. We see one walker dangling from the chandelier because that person had hung himself. But because they didn't see the walker as much of a threat, so they just went along and searched around. They split up, they searched, but then they were ambushed by walkers. Daryl, he actually found a little trinket box filled with candy, and I assume from the wrapping it kind of looked like saltwater taffy. I don't know, I feel like any candy 12 plus years later would probably be inedible. But what do I know, right? So they take down the walkers that have ambushed them. They walk out to the balcony, they look down, and they see the streets are filled. It is packed. There is no way they're getting out. So all they can really do is wait out the herd. And then we get a cut. 2 days have passed, and they're still trapped in there. 2 days have passed, and the herd of walkers has not yet thinned out. So these guys are kind of in a tight spot. I love this one line where Daryl's just like, man, fuck those Scots. This sucks. You know what else kind of sucks too? There was a line thrown out where Carol's just like, did you find any other food? And Daryl said he combed through all of these apartments like 10 times and found very little. It's like, damn. Show us. Show us, don't tell us. But we know these spin-offs. These spin-offs having beautiful visuals, by the way. Having much higher budgets, well, they kind of don't have the budget to do crazy set-piece designs. The one that they gave us this episode was already pretty good. It looked really good. And then the visual effects to show how decayed London is was mwah. We see the Big Ben, we see the... What's the not the Eiffel Tower. What's the Ferris wheel called again? The London Eye? But yeah, we see landmarks completely run down with vegetation grown all over. And it's like, this is really sad. Well, while Daryl and Carol are hatching their plan to get out of here, preferably alive, Carol was about to open her can of sausages. It's like, I thought you were saving that for special occasions. Well... what's a special occasion if not our last meal? So just as Daryl was handing her a can opener, because of course you have that in the apocalypse, believe it or not, that's actually one of the least strange things for you to have. You find one along the way, that's good to have to open any other canned foods you might find along the way. Well, they notice a light signal coming through the window. So Daryl breaks a mirror, takes a shard of glass, a shard of the mirror, and tries to signal back with the light. But they don't see anything reflect back, at least, questionably. Carol's suggesting maybe it was just the sunlight. So, later that night, when they're both asleep, they hear footsteps on top of them. And then they see the balcony. They see a man had somehow got himself up there. Now, he seems friendly enough. His name is Julian. He offers rabbits as a peace offering for food. And then they get to know each other. You know, throughout watching this, I was thinking there's something off with Julian. He speaks really fast. There seems like there's something with him. Maybe something malicious. But spoilers, no. He was completely harmless. I guess he just talks really fast. And also maybe the years of isolation caused him to be like that too. Because while they were feasting on rabbits, enjoying a hot meal for once, while they were eating dinner, Daryl asked what happened to all the people, and Julian's just like, you're looking at him. I'm the last living Englishman in England, or in London, as far as I know. Julian says that he hasn't seen another living person in so many years. That's kind of extreme to think about. For many, many years, you're alone. You're the last living, breathing, surviving person of your city, your nation, maybe. You have nothing but the dead around you. You have to hunt for animals. You have to take care of yourself. Avoid the dead. No one to talk to. And that's the case for many years. In Julian's case, he never knew if anyone was going to come in. If any living person was going to come into his life. And then Julian said this really weird, like, riddle, I guess. Something about squids. So I guess he calls all walkers squids, I guess. I don't know, I guess it was a nice icebreaker, I guess. So they talk over a bottle of scotch or some sort of alcoholic beverage. And then Julian just drops that he has a boat stored somewhere because he and his mates were going to try to sail away. But they all died and he was alone. He couldn't man the boat himself. So remember how I said earlier that there were bits of lore dropped? That the UK actually survived? Well, from what we saw, that don't look like survived to me. So what happened? Julian said that, yes, they did close off everything. But when things got bad, when things got overrun, they were closed off. People couldn't come in, but people couldn't leave either. Oh, that sounds pretty bad, yeah. So, yeah, that does explain what happened to London. So, when Julian drops that he has a boat, they continue their conversation, but Daryl's like, so where's your boat at? Carol tries to, try to calm everything, because you can immediately feel the tension. Carol's just like, we have people back home. In North America, people who love us, who's waiting for us to come back. Don't you want that? Someone to wait for you to come back also? North America still has life in it. It could be your home too. But then Julian's just like, or you can stay here. Plenty of rabbit to hunt. It's almost like they were setting up Julian being malicious, like, you're staying here. I've been alone for years. You're the first people I've talked to in so many years. I'm not letting you go. It almost felt like they were setting that up, but no, they weren't. Or it also, well, these aren't our characters, but it also might have felt like they were setting up Carol. This guy has a boat. If we kill him and take his boat, we could go home. Carol and Daryl aren't that kind of people. Well, actually, Carol might be, but Daryl's not. Unless his hand is forced. But no, none of that. It was all peaceful. Eventually, they did convince Julian. Like, yeah, come with us. We can all go to North America together. Julian's like, okay, let me go gather supplies first. Meet me downstairs at the front, 10 a.m. sharp. Daryl asks a pretty obvious question. How are we supposed to know when it's 10? And Julian just says, you'll know. Well, the next morning, they hear the Big Ben, chime, the bells ring, and that lures away the walkers blocking, well, everywhere. How did that happen? Well, Julian said over the years he taught himself how to use it. Which, okay. Okay, I guess I can believe that. Julian also brought a big supply of food that he stashed up for the trip that he and his friends were planning to do. Leave the UK on their boat. But like I said, all his friends died. After a little bit of more conversation, because he had his doubts that Carol and Daryl were sailors, well, they set sail anyways. And I gotta say, the visuals are great. Them sailing out of London, seeing how crowded the hordes of walkers are, the zoom out shots, and also just seeing Julian look back at what was his home. Not only before the apocalypse, but also his home during the apocalypse. He lived there alone all that time, and to look back and say goodbye to it, you can really feel the sorrow in his eyes. Well, now the three of them are on a sailboat out in the middle of the frickin' ocean, which is insane. You know, it's not a cruise liner. It's not a delivery. What was it called again? A cargo ship. It's not a cruise liner. It's not a cargo ship. It's a sailboat. That kind of vessel isn't built for the ocean. But whatever. And you know, if Ash didn't say it, if the message Ash said in Season 2 wasn't enough to make you understand, then let Julian say it again. Ash was just like, you want me to fly you to another continent? No prediction of the weather, no idea what's on the other side. Well, Julian, the only thing he has is a compass. And all he can do is guess where they would have sailed off to. So they're kind of lost out in the middle of the sea, but they're also, according to Julian's calculation, right on track. They should make North America in 11 to 17 days. Now, there's a lot of things to break down here. First of all, I like that Julian added in the line, no electronics, no anything to help guide them on where they're going. That's kind of crazy. A dinky little sailboat in the middle of the ocean, sailing from the UK to North America. A sailboat! All you have is a paper map and a compass to tell you where you are. What's stopping you from drifting in the middle of the sea forever? Just because, I don't know, the wind decides to be mean to you and blow you in a different direction. Or, just like we see later in the episode, what's stopping some storm from happening? And also, 11 to 17 days in the middle of the ocean on a sailboat. That is insane. One tidal wave and you are lost forever. But for the most part, their sails went swimmingly, no pun intended. It went smoothly for the most part. There was even this nighttime scene where Daryl and Carol were talking. Once again, a lot to point out here. First of all, just like with a ton of Walking Dead episodes, it pisses me off how lit up and bright it is at nighttime. Yes, there's the moon providing some sort of some sort of light in the night. But realistically, in the middle of the ocean in a sailboat, it is pitch black out there. Let's face it. The reality would be it is pitch black out there. The only light you would be able to see would be looking up and seeing the stars. If there was no moon, it would be pitch black. Even if it was the moon, it would not be that bright. And also every now and then, the background while they were in the ocean did look like a green screen, a blue screen, but you know, they did the best they could. They're obviously not going to film in the middle of the ocean. We see, for like the first time ever, small, and I mean very small, flashbacks to Daryl's childhood. We don't really get anything from Daryl's past before the apocalypse. We don't really see much of that. We only hear every now and then stories of him and Merle, but aside from that, nothing really. We don't really ever see anything. So we got reality. In reality, we got some blink and you'll miss moments. But I'm sure they'll expand more on that later in the season. At least I hope. Because if they don't, that was absolutely pointless. Carol tells Daryl about what she saw in the tunnel. She was like, it almost felt like Sophia came up to me and told me that it was okay to let it all go. And Carol actually does seem like she's free from all that. All her guilt about Sophia. It does seem like Carol's finally free from all that. At least, you know, for the most part. I'm sure for Carol, something like that she will never fully let go. And also, one thing I forgot to mention about the tunnel. The hell with Caudron's story, I guess. The hell with that character, I guess. Because he just ran off at the end of Season 2 and... well, he's gone. He ran off chasing what he believed to be his brother, and then Daryl and Carol just left the tunnel, left him, and then they just freaking left France. So, the hell with Caudron, I guess. We're just never gonna find out what happened to him. He's gonna be the new Heath. People have been asking what happened to Heath. Nah, what the hell happened to Caudron? He was a good character, too. He was more of a character than Heath was. So yeah, the hell with Caudron, I guess. Just never mind him. We don't need to know what happened to him. Is he dead? Is he alive? Don't worry about it. We're never gonna get an answer. So anyways, they see a storm coming up. And while trying to get the boat ready... or just have the boat not sink. Julian gets hit in the face, gets absolutely whacked in the face by... I don't know what it's called. The thing on the boat that holds up the sail. Like, he got thwacked in the face so hard, his cheek broke open. And he was just stunned, you know? He wasn't really thinking properly. He wasn't really moving. And I just knew, like, oh, man. Any character who's not our main characters with plot armor, that's gonna kill him. That's gonna kill him. So Daryl and Carol go back out to try to protect the boat from sinking. And this is one thing I don't understand about boats, about ships. Someone let me know if this is the case or not. How do boats not sink when it rains, especially small sailboats like this? When the rain builds up inside the boat, won't it weigh it down and sink the boat from the weight? Unless there are holes, like small holes that let the water escape? I don't know. Because from my understanding, when something floats on top of water and you fill it with water, it'll weigh it down and it'll sink. So how do boats not sink in the rain when water builds up in the boat? How does that work? Someone let me know. So anyways, they're trying their best to get the boat, save the boat from the storm. And then we cut to commercial, and then we cut to them shipwrecked on a beach. Well, that's just lazy writing. So we see Daryl shipwrecked, stranded on a beach. No idea where he is, in a foreign country. And no, I'm not talking about the Season 1 premiere. Only this time, he has Carol with him. Yippee. So Daryl and Carol shipwrecked. So Daryl and Carol are alive and okay. Where's Julian? Daryl goes into the boat to search for Julian. He's not there. Carol walks around disoriented, discombobulated. She sees Julian standing next to the shores of the ocean. Julian turns around and, oh no, he's dead. He's a walker. And, well, this is a pretty big plot hole. This is pretty stupid. Julian's walker body just walked right past an unconscious Carol and Daryl. And for some reason walked to the shores of the ocean and stopped. Instead of just continuing to wander. What, did the walker version of Julian just admire the ocean? The biggest part I cannot forgive is that walker just walked right past Daryl and Carol. Unconscious. And did not eat either of them. Well, that's just lazy writing. But whatever, they have to put down Julian. And it is quite sad to see Daryl just push Julian's dead body out into the ocean, letting his body drift into the water. You know, the sad part is, if you think about it, Julian, like he said himself, was the last Englishman living in London. So he was the last person there. Everyone he ever knew is dead. Anyone who would have remembered Julian's existence is dead. Except for Daryl and Carol. Now that Julian's body is pushed out into the ocean, well, no one's ever going to find him. Julian is gone. No one will remember him aside from Daryl and Carol, and let's face it, they're never going to bring him up again. And Julian's body is gone. Julian is gone. As if he never existed in this world. Ain't that the sad thing about death? Once you're gone, you're gone. As if you never existed. Well, Julian's dead. Which, once again, brings up the issues with these spin-offs. These spin-offs have a really, really bad habit of introducing new characters and killing them off really quickly, if not immediately. Think about the really good characters, really likable characters, hell, even villain characters who had so much more to offer. Think about all the characters that they killed off. They killed off Madame Genet, Okafor, General Beale, Isabel. They killed off... Shit, I already forgot his name. Dead City Season 2, I already forgot his name. They killed off Ginny. They killed off... Oh my god, what was the character's name? Bruegel! That's it! They killed off Bruegel. Like, they kill off these newly introduced characters so quickly. You remember Tommaso? And the hell was her name again? Shit, whatever her name was, who died alongside Tommaso in Dead City Season 1. They killed off Navirez. And the worst part is her death sucked. She was such a hateable character. You wanted her to have such a satisfying, agonizing death. But no, her death sucked. It was instant. No struggle, no anything. It was awful. All that build up to make us hate the character just for nothing. No payoff. So yeah, the spin-offs have a really, really bad habit of introducing new characters just to kill them off. So the new characters introduced in Season 3, like, will be introduced after this episode. I'm not gonna bother growing attached to them, because I'm expecting them to die by the end of the season. Which, need I remind you, is only 6 episodes. Even Dead City had 8, and they wasted the runtime. So, Carol has a wound on her back. There's pieces of metal shrapnel stuck in it. Daryl has to, fix her up, get rid of the metal lodged in her back. And once again, any other character, this injury would kill them. Daryl even said the wound is infected too. So any other character, this would have killed them. Easily, 100%. The next morning, if it wasn't Carol, any other character would have been dead. And that's something I feel like is also an issue in The Walking Dead. People just die so easily. People die a little too easily. Kind of like Julian. He got hit in the face, and then it just cut to black. We don't know if he drowned. We don't know what happened. So because we don't know what happened, I'm just going to assume he died from being hit in the face. Now granted, yes, he was hit pretty hard, but still, that killed him? We've had people in this universe shot and stabbed, body parts amputated. Hell, we had Alicia survive a bite. Whatever. Well, Daryl fixes Carol up, but then later that night, Daryl sees a group of, a group of people come up. People on horseback with torches and wearing animal skulls on their head. So clearly they don't look friendly. And you don't want to even risk encountering them. Well, Daryl planned to fix up the boat so that they can be unshipwrecked. But these people, they ransacked and pillaged the boat. So now they're stranded. Carol and Daryl, they look at a sign and realize, this isn't North America. Welcome to Spain, amigo. So it seems like they didn't really get far. Their plan was to get from France to North America, and they ended up in Spain. Well, it was a valiant effort, I suppose. Well, they walk more inland, try to see what they can find to survive. They stop at this little shack where they rest up. Daryl, he goes out to hunt in the morning. Carol wakes up and hears laughter coming from somewhere, so she wanders off. Daryl hunting a rabbit. He encounters more people driving in cars, so he hides, and then he runs back to warn Carol, but then Carol's gone. So Daryl's left alone, and he's shouting for Carol, and that's where the episode ends. All in all, it was a pretty good first episode, albeit with its many issues. It does have a ton of callbacks to the first episode of the show. However, that first episode was just 2 seasons ago. 12 episodes ago. It was less of a callback and more of just a redoing. And more like a copy and paste, only with more in it now. And like I said, the issues with introducing new characters just to kill them off, why even bother getting attached to the new characters, right? Oh. And then we got a sizzle reel of what's to come in the season, which looks pretty good, not gonna lie. Oh yeah, one more thing I forgot to mention. The Season 3 intro. Instead of a French theme, it now has a Spanish theme. They speak Spanish in Spain, right? I don't know anything about Spain. It has a Spain theme. Not gonna lie, I kind of like the Seasons 1 and 2 intro better. But, you know, it'll take time for me to grow to enjoy this one. It's the same theme song. It's the same tune, just in a different melody, I guess. Does that even make sense? The first one was in a French theme. This one's in a Spain theme. And where is my shiny Giratina? Why is this taking so long? Alright, let me know what you guys thought about Daryl Dixon, Season 3, Episode 1. It was good, but it still had its issues. Many, many issues. Ugh. I can't believe they just left Codrone behind. They just abandoned him. They just left him. Not just our characters, the story, the writers, they all left him. Not only poor character, poor actor, you know? His character just vanished with no resolution, and we're never gonna see the character again. It's already quite a big ask for you to suspend disbelief that Daryl made it to France, Carol made it to France and found him, and now they made it to Spain. That's already pretty hard to believe. If eventually we see Codrone show up in Spain as well, that is horrible writing. That is just too convenient. At this point, it's barely a show based in real life. What? Based in realism? And more just a fantasy show. Because if that were to happen... oh, that would be pretty bad. If Codrone showed up in Spain. Imagine that. Alright, but I better get going, because I may not have enough time to break down the 3 other shows. So up next is The Boys, Season 4, Episode 5. I know me breaking down The Boys, Season 4 has been a bit of a mess. A mess just like the season itself. But yeah, I know it's been a mess of me breaking down the show. Or specifically this season, but you know, I'm trying my best. At least we're finally getting back to it. You know, the last 2 times we had movies to break down. I do have another movie coming up to break down, but after we finish The Boys, I swear. So this episode of The Boys had 3 storylines. I'm going to break them down one at a time. So the first storyline I'm going to do is the most separate. I'm going to do Huey's storyline in this episode because it's the... In this story... What? In this episode, Huey's storyline is the most isolated, most self-serving. It doesn't really affect the other 2 storylines. So Huey is... Remember at the end of the last episode, which I broke down ages ago, Huey was about to give his father Compound V, but then he opted not to. So he left to grab a coffee, and then his mother gave him the Compound V. So Huey's father seems fine. You know, he acts normal, he's behaving normal. So then Huey takes his mother out the room and be like, Mom, you gave him Compound V? His mom is just like, well, I thought you wanted to. That's why you brought it here, right? I saw it drop out of your jacket pocket. It's like, well, I guess that explains how his mother knew that he had Compound V. Unless you're telling me she just suddenly decided to search his jacket pockets for whatever reason. But, you know, all's not as well as it seems. Because we've seen in the show just how reactive people can be to receiving Compound V. It could end up great, or it could be quite an issue. So, throughout the episode, we see small signs of decay, I guess. Small signs of issues arising. So, Huey's father first shows signs of memory loss. And then when Huey comes back into the room later on, his father's gone. Huey's mom is just like, I thought he was with you. So they get up, they search the hospital, and they see him in a different room, having killed someone. A different patient in the hospital is lying dead on the floor with his heart out. Huey's dad was holding his heart in his hands. So Huey's dad obviously doesn't know what's going on with him, and he's also suffering from memory loss. So, kind of like Huey with Temp V, how he's able to teleport and go from place to place. Huey's dad has a similar power scheme where he can phase. He can phase through objects. So he can just phase through the walls. At least he keeps his clothes on, unlike Huey does. So then he runs literally into the wall, into the next room, where a patient is trying to ask out a nurse, and then suddenly this guy in a hospital gown runs up to you and just stops in the middle of you. So suddenly Huey's dad is standing in the middle of a man's torso. And I mean that literally, I did not misspeak when I said that. Huey's dad is standing in the middle of a man's torso. So now there's a giant hole in this guy's abdomen. Considering there's now a body in there. The hospital goes into lockdown. I guess this is a hospital for human, not soups. And I guess if there is a soup in the hospital, then the hospital goes into code red, I guess. So, now Huey's dad has accidentally killed 2 people. Huey and his mom try to stop him, but he has memory loss. He's just like, I gotta go to the store and pick up an action figure, a doll, for Huey. You know, he says it's a action figure, but it's a doll. But Huey tries to be like, Dad, it's me, I'm Huey. It's like, you're not Huey, Huey's 11. But then he also notices his wife is standing there as well, and he's just like, Daphne? Why are you here? Daphne, you left me! You left our boy! You ruined my life! You ruined our son's life by leaving! So he chases after her, and, you know, the two of them run for dear life. So they run into a drug room filled with medical drugs, I mean. Huey has a plan to incapacitate his father, but then obviously he phases right in. Huey's able to talk some sense into his father, like, Dad, it's me. I'm Huey. I'm your son. Remember, when I was 11, you brought me to buy that doll, even though I was like $8 short, whatever he said. And then saying, like, he was never my hero, Dad. You were. You're my hero, and I need you to wake up and hear me, Dad. So that does cause Huey's dad to finally snap back into reality. You know, he panics, he's covered in blood, he doesn't know what's happening. At least there was a line that Huey said, it's like, Compound V can cause bad things to happen to healthy people. It's no surprise this is happening to someone who was literally brain dead. And even I was thinking that too. I was thinking, there's gonna be some side effects. Because he is brain dead. Compound V is absolutely gonna react to him being brain dead. So, and this was a pretty emotional scene too, since, not gonna lie, I had to be in that position a handful of times. Not to my father, of course, but I had to be in those positions nonetheless. So they understand that there is no other alternative for this. Huey's dad, his condition is deteriorating. His condition is dangerous and deadly. So they all collectively agree that the best thing to do is to just let Huey's father go. Let him pass away. So Huey injected him with, I don't know what hospitals use to put a person down. But then, you know, they were standing side by side saying their goodbyes, and then Huey's dad passes away. And Huey, you know, he cries because his father just died. The only parent he had his entire life to raise him is now gone. And to make it even more heartbreaking, Compound V gave him a glimmer of hope. It did give them a second chance. Huey's father was already brain dead, and they were about to pull the plug on him until Huey brought in that little vial of Compound V. So for a moment, it worked. For a moment, Huey's dad was back. He seemed normal, but it was just for a moment. And then he lost his memory, started killing people left and right. And then they collectively agreed this was never supposed to happen. Father, you should have died, so let's not try to fight that. I think that's probably what's best, and that is sad. You know? Yes, they had a temporary, very brief second chance. But it also gave them false hope. Huey finally had his family together again. His father was no longer brain dead, and his mother was back in his life. For now, it seemed like he had his family back. But just as quickly as he had it back, it was gone. Now, I don't know if Huey told his father that this will kill you, or, you know, if he lied to comfort his father. Because he did say, this will make you relax. So I don't know if he lied to his father or if he told him the truth. Whichever man, poor Huey. You know, he has just gone through so much. First he lost Robin, and then all this pain and, you know, all these death scares, you know, near-death experiences the past couple of years. His mother leaving him when he was young, like, damn, Huey has had it hard. And don't even make me bring up the story about their cat that they told during the story. The story about Jar Jar. So that's the first storyline. The second storyline, this is absolutely a rip on Disney. Instead of D23 or Fan Expo, of course VOT has their own. VOT has V52 Expo. And not only that, they were announcing, geez, we're only at like phase 5 of Marvel. They have phase, what, 9 to 13? Or whatever? Phase 9 plus of their interconnected VOT universe? What the hell? So, V23 Expo, they're announcing a whole bunch of, like, movie projects and whatnot. You know, the second storyline is mostly VOT-centric. Geez, the hell was this guy's name again? The producer, the director guy. The hell was his name again? He is such a minor character. Even when his name is said, you instantly forget. Adam, that was his name. He was only in 5 episodes? I guess he was more of a background character, but it's like, damn, I feel like I saw him way more. So Adam, the director, you know, he found himself in some pretty bad positions in this episode. So anyways, while they were at V23 Expo, or V52, whatever. While they were at their Fan Expo equivalent, D23. So, A-Train is still sweating balls that, you know, he was the leak. And he's terrified that Sister Sage will find out. Because once Sister Sage finds out, she'll tell Homelander. And once Homelander is out for you, you're a goner. Let's face it, you're done for. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. If Homelander is after you, you know? It's a question of how much time you have left. So he actually brings in Ashley. He kind of makes Ashley... He drags Ashley down with him. It's like a bit of a dick move, but hey, A-Train's a dick himself. So the Deep and this Cameron guy, whatever his name was, are on stage announcing their next slate of projects. The Deep is salty that he called him out and whatever. I forget what happened in the previous episodes. So then they have this rivalry. It's like, oh, I'm gonna screw your wife later. It's like, what? Oh, don't forget, I know about your 8-legged fetish that you keep in your closet. You snitch on me, I'll snitch on you. It's like, you wouldn't dare. Let's be civil, shall we? And then this Cameron guy, whatever his name was, has the balls to dump Ashley. Because Ashley shows up and she's just like, who gave you permission to remove your Bluetooth-controlled vibrating anal beads or whatever she said? And he's just like, I don't think this is working between us. I want a dom who dominates me. I hope we could still be friends, though. It's like, damn, this man's into some freaky ass shit. So, of course, Ashley, she's not going to take that sitting down. She's gonna get some payback later on. So, this Adam director guy, he is pitching ideas to Homelander and Ryan that Ryan will star in his own, like, teen superhero show, whatever it's called, because Young Justice was already taken, so they couldn't use that name. But then Ryan, he's not really into it, so Homelander teaches his son, like, you know what? Stand up for yourself. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. And he's doing exactly what he said he would do in the last episode, you know? Teach his son that they are better than everyone else. They're basically gods. They're not confounded by anything. Or confined. So Homelander actually did a pretty good, like, father speech. Not gonna lie. Where, I don't know if I would compare this, but in a way it also, the comparison does also work. Homelander's just like, I've been controlled my entire life. Everyone dictated everything for me. What I would say, where I would stand. It's as if I was a slave to them. But no more. I am free from their slavery, just like you are. From now on, no more rules for either of us. We can do whatever we want. This world is empty besides just you and me. And you know what? I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like that. I kind of like seeing Homelander's more father side. Even if he is trying to, you know, quote-unquote corrupt his son. But he doesn't see it that way. So, Homelander asks, genuinely, what does Ryan want to do in life? And he's just like, I want to help people. Not those fake saves, but actually help others. Oh yeah, during the pitch meeting with Adam, there's this like Asian lady secretary, and he is being very, very around her. So Homelander's just like, you want to help? Here's your chance. Maybe you can help her out. So they call her over. What was her name? Whatever, doesn't matter. This is her first time showing up. They call her over and it's just like, is Adam making you uncomfortable? Don't worry, you're not in trouble. You can be honest and tell us. And she's just like, yeah? Yes, he does make me uncomfortable. So Adam and Ryan and Homelander are like, you should apologize. Oh, that apology doesn't sound genuine. I think you should get on your knees and apologize. So he does just that, and they're just like, nope, you're still lying. Hey, whatever the girl's name was, you should slap him. Go ahead. So then she slaps him, and then she just beats the shit out of him. While Homelander and Ryan watch with smiles on their faces. Like, you just hear her start beating the life out of him, and then he's just like, please, stop, I'm sorry, I beg you, please. It's a bit of a shame that the beating happened off-screen. You know? They didn't show the spectacular beatdown, but whatever. They had to save the budget somewhere. Because you can tell the budget for this episode was quite expensive, but we're not there yet. Well, during their D23 Fan Expo, they actually brought out the Guardians of Godolkin. Sam and Kate showed up. And they're gonna have their own series or whatever. Pretty cool. But that's not their only role in the episode. They go back to Vought Tower, and Homelander's just like, enough of what we've all been doing. We are going to take order into our own hands, or whatever he said. He's just like, you will now no longer be the pussies that you are. You will now be vengeful gods. And the first thing we can do, the first things you can all do, there was a leak in the 7 recently, and we believe we found that leak. So they bring in Cameron, all tied up, gagged and everything. Homelander's just like, the proof was in his phone. Messages to Marvin Milk. Was that his last name? Was that his last name the whole time? Whatever. It turns out, you know, that's what you get for dumping Ashley, because she's gonna get back at you, even if it was, you know, motivated by A-Train. So, poor man begs for his life, claiming he didn't do it, he set up, but obviously they're not gonna believe him. So, they beat him to death, once again, all off-screen. Kate and Sam get a shot in. Firecracker gets a shot in. Everyone gets a shot in. You eventually hear the beating turn into splashing, into like liquid sounds of blood splattering, but once again, you don't see it. It's a bit of a shame. The budget had to be cut somewhere. And, yeah, there you go, the second storyline. The third storyline in this episode. So, finally, we have some sort of follow-up to the whole soup virus in Gen V. They touched on that in the first episode of the season, but then it was radio silence until now. So we see Butcher meet up with Joe, in a public park. I gotta say, I thought Jeffrey Dean Morgan would be in the season a lot more than what he was. So far. So far, Jeffrey Dean Morgan seems more like just a glorified cameo in the season. Aside from like a brand new fleshed out character. So that's a bit of a shame. You have Jeffrey Dean Morgan on your show, and you're wasting him! All in all, Joe, so far in the show, hasn't done anything. He gave the drugs that Butcher was supposed to give to Ryan, and that's about it. Joe hasn't really done anything so far in the season, and that's such a shame. Because you have Jeffrey Dean fucking Morgan playing a character on your show. When Jeffrey Dean Morgan gets to be more violent and bloody on The Walking Dead than The Boys, that is such a shame. Such a crime against humanity, too. People wanted Jeffrey Dean Morgan on The Boys for so long. I saw the demand online. People wanted him on the show for so long just because he would be a perfect match. A perfect fit. Well, he's on the show and he ain't done shite. Whatever. So he's trying to talk Butcher into like, you and me, we're not good people. Your team, albeit they suck, but they're good people. You and I, we don't belong with people like them. Because you and I, we do bad things to get things done. So the whole team is pretty down. Everyone is, you know, kind of defeated. Until Butcher shows back up and he's just like, well, there's a virus that can kill soups out there. Let's go get it. And after some convincing, everyone's just like, okay. There's also this scene that's randomly thrown into the episode where MM's daughter got suspended from school for getting into a fight. That kind of came out of nowhere because we didn't even see the fight. And then we abruptly see her suspended because of a supposed fight. What purpose did that serve in the movie? In the episode? Not really anything. Except for just one line in the episode later. So they try to go get their hands on the soup-killing virus. However, there's only one person who has it. Victoria Newman. It's no longer at Godolphin when Butcher went and looked for it. But they need some sort of leverage on Victoria Newman. So, first of all, Butcher asks MM to get a goddamn presidential pardon, as if that's so easy to get. Anyways, they get a presidential pardon because it was so easy to get. They go to prison, and they offer it to Stan Edgar. You help us get the virus from your daughter, and we offer you a full presidential pardon. And also, we help get you custody over Zoe, because you don't know, do you? You don't know that your daughter shot up her daughter full of Compound V, and now she's a tentacle mouth monster. So Stan Edgar reluctantly agrees. He will help the boys for not only a full presidential pardon, but also custody over his adoptive granddaughter, I guess. Yeah. So they go to their farm, where it turns out Victoria Newman turned it into a lab, like a chemical meth lab almost, not really, to experiment on the virus. First, they have a bunch of animals that they're testing on, which, you know, I don't like animal testing as much as the next guy. However, the way our world works, you know, it's for the greater good, because they're not gonna have our precious human lives be the test subjects for our medicine. And, you know, I don't think any sane person would volunteer to be tested on. So, Butcher sees a poor little bunny rabbit being injected with a whole bunch of Temp V. So Butcher opens a cage and lets the bunny out. That was a nice move from Butcher. Well, there's no virus there, but then Victoria Newman shows up. So they agree to work together because someone on Victoria Newman's crew is missing. What was his name again? Samiz or whatever it was his name? Hold on, let me look up what his name was. Alright. Let's see. The hell was this guy's name? Wow, it is not here. This guy is not listed here. Oh no, here it is. Samir. That was his name. So someone named Samir is missing from Victoria Newman's crew. So they go and look for him. They're looking around and... Oop, bot in chat. Wait, be gone. They're looking for this Samir guy. So they look around and then they encounter a whole bunch of V'd up animals. Like there's a bunch of V'd up chickens. There's a potential V'd up bull. However, that bull got torn apart by flying V'd goats. Or were they sheep? Whatever. Poor thing. Got lifted in the air and was torn apart. But it's okay. It was all CGI. So they run for their lives into a barn. And then, you know, they find Samir there. And we finally learn who the father to Zoe is. You know, Victoria Newman's daughter. It's this guy, Samir. We never learned who the father was. Instead, Edgar's just like, you know, he was a part of my crew until he decided to deflower my daughter. That's a way to phrase it. But it's okay, because Victoria did confirm she was 20 at the time. So if she was of age, it's better than nothing, I guess. Well, the virus is gone, except for one last dose that Samir has. And conveniently, there's a dead body right next to them. So they inject the dead body, they toss the body out for the flying goats, the flying sheep to devour. And then that virus should kill them. But then it looks like, oh no, what happened to Samir? He must have died when fleeing for our lives from the goats, the sheep, before they'd all succumb to the virus. Because all they found was a leg. A decapitated leg. So it seems like Samir's dead. Throughout the episode, we see Frenchie deal with his own demons. He refuses to tell Kimiko because, you know, he's afraid that she'll hate her. By the end of the episode, Frenchie does something pretty bonkers. He actually goes to a police station and confesses, like, I've murdered people. Plural. So, Frenchie turns himself in. It's kind of insane. And also, by the end of the episode, it's actually revealed that no, Samir is not dead. He's actually been captured by Butcher. And Joe. Butcher chopped off his leg just to sell that he's dead. And Butcher's just like, you're gonna make more of that virus for us. And there you go, that's the episode. Pretty good episode, I'm not gonna lie. The episode, this was a long episode. This was like an hour and 8 minutes. When I was watching it, I was looking at the runtime like, God, how much longer is this episode? Not that it's boring or not that it's bad, it was just long. I looked at the runtime, damn, there's still half the episode left. Alright, give me a second, I'll be right back. Oh, okay, I'm back. Just had a bunch of lights to turn off. Alright, let me talk about Arcane. Season 2, Episode 5. First, let me pull up Netflix so I can break down the episode properly. So Season 2, Episode 5, Blisters and Bedrock. So this episode opens with someone in a boxing ring, it looks like. And at first I thought this person kind of looks like Vi, but that can't be her. Her hair color's not right. So at first I thought maybe this is a flashback to maybe Vi's mother. But then no, as the sequence played out more, nope, that is Vi. She dyed her hair black. So now Vi is doing battles in a fight ring to make money, I guess, or just to get rid of some pent-up anger. And that big dude who she met a couple episodes earlier, yeah, he's with Vi. So, you know, Maddie chose to stay with Caitlyn, whatever this big dude's name is, he's with Vi. Well, that team lasted as quickly as it disbanded. And throughout the fights, throughout this, like, trippy sequence of Vi fighting, you know, she always sees Caitlyn, because she's still thinking about Caitlyn. Well, eventually, later on, Jinx goes and sees Vi, and tries to tell her that Vander is alive. And that incites Vi to follow her. So Ambessa and Caitlyn, they interrogate the guy who created the monster that was Vander. They try to get him to talk what that thing is, why he created it, and how was Jinx involved. But this guy, he just refuses to talk. So they lock him up in, like, worse than solitary confinement, I guess. So we follow with Mel and what happened to her after the whole Black Rose thing happened. And, you know, we get these visuals that this Black Rose kind of looked like Ganondorf Gloom hands. It has chained up Mel, aside from Mel, her friend, whatever her name was. Mel wakes up in this unknown labyrinth place. And there's someone else there. It turns out it's her brother. What was his name? Whatever. It's her brother. Turns out her brother's alive. Well, Jinx and Isha, I think that was the kid's name. Jinx and Isha bring Vi down to these, like, abandoned railroad tunnels. Because that's where Vander's at. So they have a bunch of, like, luminescent puffball things. I assume they're mushrooms. These bioluminescent things that are non-toxic, because Jinx just straight up eats one. They look powdery, which, no pun intended, you know, powder. And it seems like these things, their light reacts to sound or any sort of motion, because they clap their hands and then bam, these things light up. Jinx and Vi bicker back and forth to the point that, you know, they start fighting a bit. Isha jumps on and tries to stop them, but then Vi just flings her off, and then that hurts her. So it's just like, alright, let's stop fighting now. Ambessa goes and offers this mad scientist guy, you know, a deal. You work for me. Your weapons becomes my weapons. My enemies become your enemies. And you know, you get your freedom for this. I will supply you everything you need. And in return, I demand absolute loyalty. Gee, where have I heard that before, you know? You know, where have I heard the evil, crazy, mad scientist being recruited for, you know, some sort of better cause? Where have I heard that before? Perhaps Sinclair and the Reanimen? So, Mel and her brother, they tried to, you know, piece together what's going on here to escape. It seems like it's a big-ass puzzle that they're trapped in. And somehow, Mel knows the answers to get out of here. You know, she just knows what to press, how to begin to solve things. So the question obviously comes up. How did Mel's brother get here? So, supposedly, he was taken here. He heard rumors about their mother, and not even the good kind of rumors, too. There were rumors that she went somewhere and fell in love. That resulted in a child. And, you know, whatever the people want with this child must have been very very valuable. Whatever passed down to that kid must be very valuable, since they took Ambessa's other children in order to try to find the kid. So, yeah. Ambessa watches this mad scientist guy, do his work. And then Caitlin joins in. And then we finally learn this guy's name. Dr. Reverick. So his name is... What was his first name again? Oh yeah, it also answers where Shimmer came from. It was him. This Reverick guy is the creator of Shimmer. At least that's what we're led to believe. I don't know, I see the subtitles here. It says his name is Singed Reverick. I'm just gonna call him Reverick. So Caitlin asks, why? Why did you create Shimmer? Why did you start all of this? And he's just like, why does anyone do anything bad? For love. It turns out that in a very secret, very nice looking room, he has what looks like, I assume, his daughter in some sort of like capsule to keep her alive. You know, it's very Mr. Freeze looking. Trying to keep Nora alive, but whatever. Everything he's been doing is to try to cure her. Not just of whatever ailment that she suffers from, but also death itself. Anyways, back to Mel. She realizes that everything she sees is a deception. Her brother is not her brother. The very room she's in, her brother, all of it's fake. Oh, Kino. That was her brother's name, Kino. So whatever this Black Rose thing is, chains her back up again. She asks, what's going on? The Black Rose, whoever's speaking, is like, we thought your brother might be the plausible child at first, but then your mother led us straight to you, sister. So something is calling Mel sister. That doesn't really get followed upon again in this episode, so we'll have to see what's going to happen later. Jinx and Vi, they find a letter that was written by Vander, meant for Silco. You know, it's a pretty heartwarming letter, and supposedly in the story, if Silco read that letter, then maybe everything would have been different. Guess we'll never know. So they're in these tunnels, and then this giant beast is approaching. Jinx tries to warn Vi that don't hurt it, because that's Vander. But something has Vander, you know, ticked off. So Vander's attacking. Vi, with her giant fisticuffs, is attacking back, is fighting back. So we see Vi fighting... What was this thing called again? Werewolf? Whatever, this Vander Wolf monstrosity. So they try to get through to him to stop attacking. Like, Vander, is it you? When Vi finally stops fighting back and it's just like, Vander, it's me. We get a flashback. We get a flashback to someone at the jukebox in Vander's bar. And it's actually Vi and Jinx's mother. She actually has purple hair, which, wow, very on the nose. A woman with purple hair gives birth to 2 daughters, each with red and blue hair. Wow, on the nose. Not only do we see Vander here at his bar with their mother, Silco's also here. You know, peaceful, eating, writing something in his notebook. Damn, it's so crazy and sad to see that these guys were such close pals and how far they drifted away later on. Very Mr. Krabs and Plankton. Well, end of flashback. We see in present day that Vi is in Vander's arms, hugging it out, embracing that it's really him. Vander's alive. Somehow. So Jinx goes in for the hug as well, and so does Isha, and it's a really nice moment. And then to close off the episode, we finally follow back with Jace at the Hex Core. It seems like he's been trapped there for quite a while, because his clothes are ripped up, his hair is long, his beard is grown out. So it seems like Jace has been stuck there for quite a while. And there is no sign of Echo or Heimerdinger, so we don't know what happened to those two. And it kind of seems like Sallow is the one who saved Jace. Sallow came in to grab something, and then he inadvertently stopped whatever's happening to Jace for Jace to, you know, be him again. So Sallow is also walking. He's been crippled literally since the beginning of the season. So how is this possible? How is Sallow walking? Well, he has Victor to thank, because Victor's able to tap into Sallow's body and speak on his behalf, I guess. So now, People are embracing Victor as like a god because of what he's doing with Hex Tech. He's giving it to the people and it's improving their lives. Just look at Sallow. He was handicapped and now he's not. So Victor is giving Hex Tech to the people and they are embracing it and worshiping him, thanking him. But Jace is just like, no, we have to destroy it. So now these guys are at odds again. So now Jace is finally free. This man just gets even more manlier. He gets bigger. The hair, the beard, this guy just gets more and more manly every time we see him. And yeah, there you go, that's the episode. The episode was fine, you know. It was enjoyable. Just let my voice rest for a couple minutes and then I'll talk about Eyes of Wakanda. Okay, before we run out of time, let's talk about Eyes of Wakanda. Episode 1. So this is a mini-series, an animated mini-series that is only 4 episodes long. So the first episode is set in the year 1260 BC. So this is almost 3,000 years before even present day in Marvel. 3,000 years in the past. You know, I don't want to say that making this animated feels a little bit lazy. Because, damn, imagine if this was live action. With a show like What If, I can give a pass for it being animated. But something like this is like, kind of wish it was live action, you know? Yes, animation is hard, but it's much easier than live action. You know, I would like for most, if not all, of the MCU to be live action. Especially if it's MCU proper. So to have something animated, I don't know, it kind of feels lazy because they could have put in the effort to do this live action to match with the rest of the universe. But I don't want to call them lazy. It's just the way I feel. Because, you know, I thought the whole point was for this to be a live action interconnected universe. Once again, I can give What If a pass for it being animated since the very concept of the show. But this one, it's like, But whatever, it's animated. Nothing can, you know, nothing can be done about that. So the first episode, we actually open up with being somewhere. I forget where it's called. And then we have invaders coming in from the water. So they attack, they capture a bunch of people, and they're kind of forcing their beliefs onto these people that they captured. Gee, where have I heard that before? So it's like, you will worship our god, the lion, or you will be forced to worship him. And those who do not worship will be convinced. So this dude gets dragged into one of the rooms, into you know, on the ships that they're captured on. And then he gets branded, poor guy. So a woman gets brought in as well, and then turns out, ooh, no, she's not just some defenseless, helpless woman. No, she is a Dora Milaje. Or at least, not entirely, because we get a flashback to 6 weeks earlier, where our main character, Noni, or Nani, I'm going to say Noni, since it's not like the Japanese Nani. So Noni gets called in before a character called Akia, and she is given a mission. So there is a rogue, high-level agent of Wakanda, I guess, like a high-level warrior of Wakanda, who left Wakanda and abandoned it. Now the problem with that is because he brought a bunch of Wakandan technology with him. And out there, elsewhere in the world, Wakandan technology could pose a threat to Wakanda as a nation, especially since this guy who left Wakanda knows about Wakanda and knows where Wakanda is. So he's a threat. And everyone else they sent after him has not returned. And the reason for that is because this person, the lion, he trained everyone that they sent after him. Now, Noni, she was actually kicked out or expelled from the Dora Milaje training, I guess, because she just does her own thing. And that's why they chose her to go on this mission, because she's not trained like your typical Dora Milaje. She wasn't trained by the lions, so she is unpredictable. Her moves and fighting tactics are unpredictable to him. So, yeah. On the fleet of ships, she makes herself known when told explicitly to be in the shadows. But she just couldn't resist when another woman was, about to be forced to comply. So she reveals herself, and she single-handedly fights everyone. Even the bigger people. Even the person I didn't even know was a woman, because just look at her design, not gonna lie. She's able to fight off everyone. So the lion, he realizes, and so he gets battle ready. He suits up, wears his mask, grabs his weapon. So there's some sort of like purple energy source. I don't know if it's the Power Stone or not. 3,000 years in the past, it's not that big of a stretch that the Power Stone was on Earth at some point. But I don't know, it's just some sort of like purple colored energy source. So I don't know if it is the Power Stone or not. I mean, remember in Avengers Endgame, they established that 3 out of 6 Infinity Stones were on Earth at one point. So I guess it's not that much of a stretch to say that 3,000 years in the past, the Power Stone may have been on Earth. But it's not confirmed if this was an Infinity Stone or not. So, Noni, she goes and fights a lion, but it turns out he's not a defective warrior from Wakanda. He was sent out here to die because there's like a secret Black Ops Wakandan task force called the War Dogs. They're sent out as spies all along the world, and they're expected to die. But then, once these war dogs go out into the real world, they see the real world. They see what the world is like outside of Wakanda. So then, the lion, he just wants to be free. He wants to be free of Wakanda's bidding. So he goes out and he creates his own following. He wants to be free. He can set Noni free as well. However, Noni, she refuses, and then they fight. And then because Noni's fighting style is unpredictable, so she gets the upper hand on the lion. And then she wins. So the lion goes kamikaze, wanting to take himself out because he is fatally wounded. He's just like, well, if I'm going, then you're going too. But Noni runs away just in time. So she goes back to Wakanda, talks to Akia, and then, Akia offers her a spot back on the Dora Milaje, but she refuses, or she rather declines. And then she realizes that mission was a test for me to not be Dora Milaje, but be one of the war dogs. Akia is just like, yes, but first I wanted you to discover it for yourself. So now, Noni voluntarily joins the War Dogs. Where she goes on missions around the world, which are super dangerous, and chances are she won't make it back alive. But given she's the main character, I bet you she will make it back alive. Yeah, there you go. Eyes of Wakanda Episode 1. It seems like Eyes of Wakanda is a very anthology series based, because, from this Wikipedia page I have in front of me, it looks like each episode's going to take place in a different year. Not even that, some of them even take place in different centuries. So it looks like we may not follow the same character throughout all 4 episodes. given that this show takes place so far in the past, I feel like it would be cool to see an Eternal show up. Because the Eternals were on Earth since 5000 BC. But no, these episodes take place, or rather this episode takes place in 1260 BC. So the Eternals should be on Earth somewhere. It would be cool to see if one of the Eternals shows up at some point. Though I'm not going to count it. I'm not going to count on that. It would have been super cool though. And also, if these really are the very, very ancient ancestors to our present-day Wakandan characters, these guys should technically still be around in present day via the ancestral plane. Because in the Black Panther movie, we saw T'Challa go to the ancestral plane and all of his ancestors were there. So it might not be that far of a stretch to say that the characters we meet in this show are still somewhere around in present day, just in the ancestral plane. That's kind of cool to see. Although, will we ever see them again? Probably not. This show, at least based on the first episode, seems very optional. It kind of seems like this show doesn't really matter if you watch it or not. It's just if you want some extra small stories of Wakanda's past, then you can watch it. Though in the greater scheme, they don't serve any purpose, since these shows take place so far in the past. Then again, I'm only one episode in. Maybe the next 3 episodes will show something that connects to present day. Okay, so there you go. Eyes of Wakanda. ES to Wakanda. What does YES spell? Yes. What does EYES spell? ES. It's like, are you sure? Anyway, so I rambled enough today. I'm about to end. Can I end with a shiny? No. Man, I'm tired. Alright, this will be the last reset. And no shiny. I'll see you guys next time.